If Carson looks like he's moving like a little bit beyond his age, he's just recovering from a herniated disc and got a steroid shot on Saturday and said to the doctor, Doc, I gotta be on my feet after lying on my back for a week. And I don't know how much Carson we're gonna get, but Carson, look what I got for you here, buddy.
Do we got a chair?
I got this for you.
Oh, it's a wooden one.
Someone get me a pillow.
There's these really nice ones backstage where, no, this is good. This is good. Also, in my CEO Bootcamp slide deck, are we able, AV team, to switch over to that real quick? I just want to show you guys something so you know that I'm not faking it.
There it is, click ahead.
We put this up?
Yeah, they'll put it up.
Opa.
I don't think our clicker is being highly responsive yet.
Oh, you're so kind.
We might need a different one.
There it is. There it
working?
is. Yeah. So this is an MRI of my back. And as you see, these are nice and healthy. But as we move down to L5 and the sacrum, there's a difference here. Did you just take a picture of that, Brent? Isn't there HIPAA? Are my medical records, aren't those private?
Not anymore. But I'm not going to blame Brent
so, for the past few years, the doc said I must have had a small injury about 3 years ago that damaged this, and over the years it's just gotten worse. And then we went go-karting about 10 days ago, and I dominated.
Until?
And the next morning I couldn't walk. So, we've been through some painful stuff, and yeah, you can see there's this, they call it a mushroom, because this stuff is supposed to be inside here, but it's not, it's out here. So that's why you see me limping around. I just had to share that so people know what's going on here. I almost came out in a wheelchair.
And
maybe that'd have been more.
We're gonna put him in a jazzy, but if we can put the slides back, this is why I couldn't actually become a doctor. Just looking at that.
Did this make you queasy?
Yeah, it does. So
me too, it's my spinal cord it's pressing on.
Let's keep your insides inside of you. Can we do that?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, I'm trying to get it back inside of me.
All
That's
right.
the goal.
I literally, when I was in college, I did a year in the ER, and I was just doing an internship. And I probably chose the worst hours because I was doing a Monday night from 9 p.m. to 1 in the morning. And like my take-home lesson was, Holy Ghost goes to bed at midnight. After midnight, crazy stuff comes through that door. I'm like, what were you thinking? It's like, I was just gonna sled across the freeway, and then I met the barrier, and it scalped me. I'm like, and you know, when the intern faints, it's not very useful when you're trying to push gurneys,
So they took a big old needle, and they shoved it into my back right into that mushroom, and they injected it with the steroid and lidocaine.
Thank you, Carson.
And that felt really, like it hurt.
Thank you.
But then it felt real. Okay, let's talk fast track, shall we?
Listen, I got us 36 minutes off base, and now we're 43.
I'm not responsible for your past decisions, Chris. All right, let's talk franchise, shall we? Fast track.
All right, so first of all, just out of curiosity, many of you in the room have met Dan Olson. By the way, Dan, are you back there somewhere? Where are you, buddy? Guys, give it up for Dan Olson. I'm really appreciative because Dan is doing something that often doesn't happen in a productive partnership. Dan is really willing to relinquish a lot of control, and he's basically saying, hey, I've also had a chance to observe you and your companies and systems, and I really feel like we have found a really beautiful marriage, and Carson and I have very aggressive plans with Fast Track, and so over the next 6 months, there's going to be a considerable amount of beautiful overhaul. And all that means is speed and acceleration and just getting to market faster and making sure that trainings are in place and adding more resources. And we're really excited about it. It's actually, for me, it's really a perfect portfolio piece because this is where Dan and I have the same vision. Mine just has a lot of volume like attached to it. Dan has he's brought companies to billion-dollar levels in exit, so successful. But I look at his volume on Fast Track Franchise and I said, brother, this is cool, but if we can supercharge it with this culture, with this mentality mindset and with these systems and trainings, et cetera, and we add the safety nets, these different components, brother, we can start tackling some very meaningful volume. And how cool would it be if you took something like Pure Life and had it sold out in 3 years instead of 15? Like, it's better for everyone when you go faster, and franchise wins by being a game of speed. And so the speed of crone is something.
It's real.
It's real. And I have to also tell you one other really cool thing. I finally have met someone in my world that can do speed of crone, and it's the speed of Carson. Carson's fast.
They all just watched me hobble onto the stage. Yeah. So he's speaking metaphorically.
We're not talking about his jazzy and like mile per hour. Let's go, bro.
Let's do this. Okay, so I thought it was really interesting when you were doing the game plan up here, Chris. One of the first things you talked about was, have you thought about business? Now, for years, as we've taught people how to do real estate, we know that real estate's kind of like this long-term play, and some people are like, cash now. And the solution for cash now is business. And that's really what we're talking about here is Chris has been searching for a long time for a formula that would allow people to get into business and eliminate a lot of the risk. And that's what Fast Track is really all about.
I love the systems. Honestly, when you step into a franchise, you are statistically many times more likely to be successful because someone's thought through the branding and tested it. And the reality is success in business comes down to iteration until you get a successful iteration that's duplicatable. And that's what franchising is. So it's a very exciting part of the game.
Now, you've probably all seen statistics like this before, like the failure rate of most startups, most businesses. I mean, 90% of startups fail. 18% of startups fail within their first year. And I mean, you can see all this is backed up. Bureau of Labor Statistics and things like that. 75%, this one blew my mind, 75% of venture-backed businesses still fail. So most people think, oh, if I had enough capital, it would work.
Do you remember what I said earlier about in the private equity game that you can be wrong 80% of the time and still win? These are the losers. They had an opportunity to compete and they didn't win, which is why we have a formula to lose most of the time and walk out of it as really big winners.
And I'm so glad that we're having these conversations about iteration because success in every realm of life comes down to iteration. You get better as you do it. The problem with iterating for business is that it's so expensive. It's expensive in terms of money, in terms of time, in terms of emotion. How many people have started a business and then had to sunset that business? Yep. How's that feel on your emotions? Are you ready to like get back there and do it again?
Well, and most iterations can last years.
Right,
So it's like,
time.
I remember the first time I sunsetted my first business, I'm like, 10 years of my life, I will never get back. The lessons, invaluable, but in that moment, that is not what I was thinking about. I was just grieving loss.
Which is why I think it takes a certain personality type that's sort of a glutton for punishment to be able to be like, no, I'm going to start it from scratch every single time, and I'm going to run a business, and I'm just going to try, and I'm just going to try until I succeed no matter how many iterations it takes. Well, that's not the demeanor of the average investor, the average person that wants to be successful. Most don't want to go through 10 painful years to figure out how to do it. And that's where this formula comes into play. Franchising and the way that Dan's setting it up really changes this approach because, like Chris said, someone else is doing a lot of the iteration for you.
Well, and if I can say, my first run at franchise certainly wasn't with Dan. Years ago, I bought into a franchise at a corporate level. I had a chance to buy multiple franchises, and what I did instead is I bought a piece of the company. The company took off, and within a year, I got the majority of my money already back out and then left everything else on the table, and it is just skyrocketing. And so I was thinking to myself, wow, if you're a single franchise owner, you've got a shot to play and win with an advantage. You tell me, if you have a franchise that's making money, let's just throw out a random number. Let's say after all expenses, absentee owner is making you $100,000 to $200,000 a year. What are you thinking is your next iterative move? Own what? Own more. How many more? Guys, what do I tell people? If you can make money on a real estate deal, then how many more do you want to own?
All of them.
At the end of your life, all of them.
All of them.
At the end of your life, when you say, wow, my equity in my home is greater than what I saved for retirement, you'll have wished in that moment that you could time machine back and just about 5 more. You'd be a millionaire. Or in my case, you'd buy 1,000 more. Or there's never enough. It's that song, Never Enough.
Never enough.
That one, thank you. He has talent, folks. So
I'll be here all week.
So when you can iterate business, and by the way, when you iterate real estate, it's awesome. But when you iterate business, this is, I mean, I've got tons of buddies who are like, oh yeah, I own 20 franchises and, make, $6 million a year. And they just collect franchises. But do you know who wins bigger between the franchisee owner or the person that owns the franchise? So I want to be really clear that what we're actually talking today is not about you buying a franchise. And I would suggest you do that. And I'm not saying this is not about owning a master franchise, because I would suggest that you do that. But there's a piece of the pie that I'm going to show you that most people just never get a shot at. And today is about you owning a piece corporately of not one franchise, but multiple franchises. And so we're talking about owning a piece of what will in time become dozens of companies that are all franchised. You get me on this one? Okay, cool, continue.
Okay, so let's talk about the market for franchises. 2.3 trillion global market in just franchising. In America alone, 827 billion. Now, if we compare that against real estate rentals and leasing, or even against e-commerce, and we all know e-commerce is blown up, right? We're like, Amazon's taking over the world. But really, most of us shop with very familiar brands. In fact, as you were learning from Thatch, so much of the industry of America, the GDP, comes from physical retail value. And I mean, look at the names up here: 7-Eleven, Ace Hardware, Century 21, Marriott, Subway, the UPS Store, Exxon. Like, you guys know all of these brands. Yeah. And they all started with one store and then franchised and grew because someone figured out a system and then just duplicated it, iterated it over and over again.
I'd also point out that a third of the entire franchising market is in the United States, and it is coming up on being $1 trillion industry. And when I'm looking at investing in an industry, one of the things that I ask, is this a Uber $90 billion industry, or is this a $500 billion industry? It is not easy to get into the trillion game. And Thatch gives us that opportunity. Franchises nearing $1 trillion, which basically means it's massive. It's also very well thought of and very well adapted inside the United States.
So franchising is obviously very sexy, right? If you can make it work, I mean, the huge brands come out of it. The problem is there's a number of steps in the process that can make it really difficult. So let's just talk first of all. Let's say you've got a single entity, a business that you're like, man, wouldn't it be cool if I had multiple locations? DIY franchising is very, very difficult. Just going out and doing it on your own. I think Dave Nibley, if he's still here, he's the CEO of Melty, and he was telling me his stories of opening multiple restaurants and some of the headaches that come along with that. I mean, there's just a list up here of things that can go wrong, right? Ineffective marketing, inadequate documentation, insufficient expertise, lack of financial support, and you're kind of carrying that all on your back. So if you are looking at taking your company and growing it and franchising it, this essentially says doing it by yourself is going to be, if not more of a heavy lift than starting your business, at least equal to it.
And now, one of the things that Carson does is Carson, in a really weird metaphor, is franchising all my companies. And here's what it means. He takes a company, for example, like Fast Track or like Thatch, and he says, we are going to superimpose our culture, training systems, our code of ethics. We're going to superimpose our model of how we read financial reports and how we do our accounting and how we process things. And basically through the entire company says, we're going to overlay that onto the company. That is really what Carson does, period. But that is what a franchise has to do when you have a successful 2, 3, or 4 restaurants, for example. You have to really figure out, what are our SOPs? What are our critical drivers? What makes this thing work? What makes it run? What makes us successful? Because we have to duplicate it. And so really what you're building is a cloning machine. And a lot of people on their own, they just can't figure it out. They need an expert to come in and say, actually, let's go through all the systems and show you how to do that. And this is what gets me really excited about the partnership with Dan, because Dan has this great company that is doing this process. But if we superimpose our entire methodology on how we clone things that I would say a deeper level. It's one thing to say you're set for franchising. It's another thing to say, okay, let's go to level deeper. Let's bring all of our franchise owners into CEO boot camp. Let's teach them how to run and operate successful businesses. Let's give them a winning culture. Let's provide for them conventions and events where we do mental fortification training. Can you imagine what happens when the franchise world meets that level of mindset training as well as business training? Not on, well, this is how you do your job SOP, but okay, for the manager and each of your employees, what are the daily drivers? And what are their weekly KPIs? And are you tracking those things? Most franchises don't. They basically say, we gave you enough of a thingy, go. What happens when they're all using these systems?
Exactly. So that's the next step. So you go to one of these franchises companies like FranCorp or Neighborly or Rourke, and a lot of it's just going to be like, here, I'll set it up for you, pat you on the back and say, good luck. Like, go out there and franchise it now. We help set it up. And so as Chris already mentioned, I don't need to belabor the point. We've looked at that model and said, there's got to be something, there's got to be a better way to do it. So let's talk about the franchising success. And I want to be clear on our nomenclature, because when we're talking franchise, there's a lot of different terms, right? You've got the franchisee who buys the franchise. You've got the franchisor, who is the one that owns the original entity. And then you've got corporate, fast track, that's helping grow it all. But there's benefits for each person along the way. So for the founder, someone that started a company and they want to franchise their company. High growth ROI, it's low risk, lots of franchising success that we can show you Dan Olson's track record. How many have heard of Massage Envy? Yeah, that's one of Dan's franchises that blew up and went nationwide, and he's done multiple franchises like this. How about Orange Theory? One of Dan's proteges took Dan's system and took Orange Theory and launched it to the entire country. So these systems really work. Benefits to the entrepreneur, the person who is coming in and saying, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't want to start up from scratch, right? So they come in and they buy a franchise. It's low risk, high reward opportunities because we've already done so much of the iteration on it. A lot of things have already been figured out. You're not sitting down and trying to figure out hamburger recipes, right? If you're buying into Good News Burgers, for example, they've already figured it out. They've got an amazing burger, and all you got to do is make it the way that they make it. You just see a lot of higher rates of franchising success with everything that Dan has built with fast track franchising. And industry diversification, safety net, we're going to talk about that a little more in depth. There's two major tracks that are going to be involved in fast track franchising. The first is franchise development. And that is the scenario where someone comes and says, I've got a company, I want you to help me franchise it, and I'll pay you, but the relationship kind of ends there. Right? It's like, I want to take it from there and run. And it's like, great, we can do that. The next level is the growth track, the sales and growth track. And those are some of the brands that you're going to see coming up. Some of you are probably familiar with them, like Pure Life and Melty, Awi 32, Twisted Ink. These are brands that we want more skin in the game. They're saying, no, I want to be on the sales and growth track where you help me sell this franchise out across the country. Now, the franchisor gives up a little bit of equity to us in order for us to have that skin in the game. But what that ultimately does is yokes us together to be hitting the same goals, because we win together and we lose together, which means we have equal vested interest in being successful. Chris already stole my thunder. Franchise safety net is a really, really cool idea that we intend to implement to help save us from franchises that might be struggling or encounter diverse market conditions that were unexpected, and we want to be prepared for those storms. And this safety net is not something that any of those other entities that we had up there, Neighborly, FranCorp, Rourke, nobody offers this kind of thing. The question is, what if it doesn't work? It's always, well, that's on you. And we don't want to do that. We want to have this safety net where there's going to be options, whether we step in and help find leadership, whether we step in and say, no, we've got this safety net of money that we can allocate more towards marketing, and we can see if we can get this going. Or maybe it was put in a bad location. And that's quite an expense to rip up a business and move locations. But if we're prepared for it, I mean, that's what insurance is for, right? Like when the storm comes, We want to have that safety net. And then Franchise Bootcamp is something that we'll be kicking off as well to help every franchisee owner know what they need to be doing to have a successful business. And it's going to be yoked at the hip with CEO Bootcamp, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. I think one of the core takeaways is we take business all the way from setup to success. We don't walk away from it. Once something's up and going, once something's part of the team, we're going to be in it until we make it successful. And I mean, we've listed a number of these things already.
Carson, do you mind if I share one more piece on that?
For sure.
I'm back. What every franchise owner wants are two things. The first thing they want is what?
Money.
They want cash flow. What's the second thing they want? It's what every business owner wants. What do they want? They don't want systems. They want the ability to exit someday. Yes or yes? You build a business for cash, and then someday you sell it and make money. Yes or yes? When you pay for a franchise, you have a startup fee. When you sell it, how many of you would like to only recuperate your money? You understand there's
They
a
love
reason.
that one.
There's a reason why you can pay $2 million for a Chick-fil-A. Do you think that's what they cost a decade ago? They appreciate value and they go up in value, right? So you can sell a franchise individually, but you can also do roll-ups where the entire franchise has the opportunity to be sold and create exit options for any of the owners that want that. So there's some novel things that we want to create that the industry isn't really set up for, because it's mostly saying, owners, figure it out on your own, right? Oh, I went to a lawyer and they gave me franchise paperwork. I guess we can franchise now, but now we're tripping over our lack of systems. And so what we want to do is we want to help take them from birth to death. Sounds.
Or exit.
Execution.
So
Exit.
this is just showing you here that there's a potential for huge ROI. Like Chris said, when we were looking at the ROIs of annuities up here during that game plan, when we were looking at the ROIs of real estate and we're like 25 to 30%, that's really, really good. The power of business is these ROIs of upwards of 100%, 250% ROI, depending on how the business does year over year.
Yeah, by the way, how many of you like the idea that you can recuperate all of your money every year over and over and over again? Is that cool? 100% ROI is a really big deal. You get into the master franchise game, that becomes a mega ukulele really big deal. But then watch this one. This one's for your guys' eyes only. To the franchisor that says, I have an idea that I want to bring to market, what does their ROI look like? Guys, it's astronomical. And here for the Investor Club, what we're actually talking about is giving you a piece of this. Does that make sense? All right. A couple more slides.
Yep, so our success rate is 89%. A lot of that has to do with Dan Olson and his skill set and the amazing, I mean, a lot of it, it's like a home. A lot of it comes in the buy, right? When you find the right business to franchise, everything can just work from there. But here's two examples. Franchisor A, this is Health Source Chiropractic, which was the fastest growing franchise in 2008, 2009, 2 years in a row. And you can see how they did. They came on board with fast track franchising with Dan and his team, and Dan just puts the numbers out of what they did in year one. Year two, they went from selling one region to 18 to 12 in year three, moving towards 4.9 million in revenues inside of 3 years. And that's from a single franchise. This franchise B is Massage Envy, which moved a lot quicker and hit sums a lot higher. And both of these had some significant exits at the end of the day that were, you know, healthy and something that every investor would be excited to be part of. But, you know, inside of 3 years, 8.8 million. And we're talking about launching, what, 12 of these? And that's how you get to this billion-dollar number that Chris keeps throwing out with fast track franchises. It's like, if we iterate and we have 12 of these puppies.
I mean, it would be cool if one of them was worth $1 billion, but in reality, you're basically pumping out little baby nine figures. Little baby nine figures, like 100 milski here, a
Someone put that on a
250
t-shirt.
milski here. Let's have a litter of 12 of those babies. They add up.
So that gives you kind of an example of what we're trying to do and what the potential here is as we get these franchises up and going, you know, through years 1, 2, and 3 and beyond. And of course, when there's exits, it's going to change things a lot, because when you exit a business, it's for multiples. It's not just the gross revenue for the year. So it's pretty huge what we can do with Fast Track Franchise. We want to round it out and talk a little bit about the Rockstar team behind this right now. You know most of these faces. Chris, myself, Dan Olson, Tim Weeks helping as our CFO on all the many companies that we do. His expertise just incredibly valuable, and we intend to continue to grow this team with additional experts that are going to come on board and help this thing grow. Our roadmap to 1 billion. In 2022, we brought in Pure Life Medical, Twisted Ink, Top Shot, and Melty, which are awesome companies. And if you're at all interested in franchising, I'd suggest you talk with our team because these are really cool what they're doing. I think Melty just sold Arizona, the region, and they just sold Dallas. So that's awesome. In 2023, we intend to bring on Advanced Wellness. That's Always 32. It's a fitness one.
This is not supposed to be up here till tomorrow.
Is it not?
Everyone ignore this real estate franchise called Property. You're not supposed to see that till 5 p.m. tomorrow.
We're bringing on Good News Burgers, Elevate, adjustable pools. Those are pretty cool. Have you talked about those at all, Chris? It's a pool that disappears when you press a button. It's like magic.
I got a cool picture.
It's like the super rich will want to be into that. So, Villager Magazine.
That's a really weird franchise. It's where you only do 5 sales a year and make 7 figures.
Yep.
It's weird.
One Perfect Business. That's a coaching system that we can bring on that'll be really, really great. There's a couple that aren't on here, Dan. There's the accounting one. Anyway, we're always vetting lots of companies. And then Property will be really interesting. You'll want to stay tuned for that tomorrow.
Special guest flying in town tomorrow afternoon. And we are going to upset, in the real estate franchise world, there are 2 companies, both at 9 figures, competing against each other. And we're about to do something really, really mean. We're about to put both of them to shame and out of business. And it's not because we're mean. It's not. But it's going to happen. And it's going to be, we're going to take that market by storm in a crazy, crazy way. This will be our first franchise that offers its franchise owners actual seven-figure opportunity. It's going to be kind of crazy.
I love that. 20 brands generating 100 million average annual revenue gets you to 2 billion in revenue plus upside from other income streams such as product sales, royalties, and things of that nature. The other thing about franchising is there's so many different areas that you can generate revenue. Yeah.
So real simple. We right now what we're going to do is we are in the process of headhunting our CEO, our COO, and this particular company actually needs a pretty stacked executive team because they are not for a company. They're for what?
Many.
They're for a whole series of companies. So this team is going to be super, super substantial. And so this one, Russ will also be on a convertible note. And we'll be disclosing all of the information, financial successes, what the company's done up until this point. I really believe this year that we can get systems in place and 5x what we did last year, but the real potential is 12 months out from now when we can actually start moving at a really massive scale. We are refusing to move faster. We have people that want to buy more franchises, and right now what I'm doing is I'm hitting the brakes, and I'm saying we got to back up and fulfill hardcore, and we got to speed things up. There's no point selling more business. I would rather have a lineup of people there, and right now what we're doing is we're diving deep into fulfillment and rocking that part of the arena out. And that once we have that in place, the problem with this business, the temptation with this business is that through all of our different marketing and media approaches and social media, we can sell franchises all day long. But right now, they have to be done right. And they have to be done at a level where we are giving everything we possibly can as fast as possible to our franchise owners. And so that's the systems that we're putting in place. Once that is all going, we are going to slam on the gas and go and be in it for a really gnarly ride. So this is one of our 2 final investments for the Audacity Venture Fund that is just now coming online. And I just want to pause and before we go to Q&A and thank Dan Olson again. Really glad that we found this partnership. It's going to be a beautiful match. It already is. And I have to say, I pulled Carson 2 months ago out of CEOing my core company, and guess what his #1 initiative is? This is, between this and Thatch, this is where the majority of his time is going right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're really excited about what we're building, folks, and we're going to open it up. We've got time for maybe 3 or 4 questions. And then we have one more thing that we're going to do tonight before we go to dinner in a really fun way. Maybe ignite a little bit of competition. We are definitely going to celebrate the top winners. We have an award for the person that's the worst golfer. They will be competing with me, but I'm not allowed to win. And we're going to have a lot of fun. So, questions? Dan, you deserve and have the right to come up here and make a statement. Dan Olson.
She's got a mic for you.
Thank you. Can I make one clarification on the judgment call? You talked about speed, right? So I think you're underestimating my age and my speed. Remember the race we had to your plane in San Diego?
Yes.
We raced to your plane.
Yes.
Who stayed up with you?
You did.
You may have not gone full speed, but I wasn't either.
Okay.
Woo! So I went back to my high school 2 weeks ago, and I went back inside, and I looked at the record board, and I still, after 47 years, I still hold the high hurdle and low hurdle record. After 47 years, I still hold the record.
I'm not going to high hurdle Dan.
So I coach athletes, high school sprinters, hurdlers. I coach track teams. I can still stay up with those guys. I can stay with you guys any day on your speed. I will challenge that, and I will be with you every step of the way
guys,
for
give
speed.
It up for Dan.
So I just want you to know that these guys, they did a phenomenal job, and I'm so grateful that they see the potential to take my baby and raise it to the adulthood that it needs to be. I'm grateful to you and your teams and what you've done for us so far. You're amazing people. I couldn't have made a better choice. I was just sitting back here with our CEO, Dave Nibley. And when Dave Nibley came on board, he had the faith in what we were doing. I was partnered at that time with Kevin Harrington, Shark Tank. Kevin's still a friend of mine. I was texting him last week, matter of fact. I said, Dave, aren't you glad we're not partnered with Kevin and we're partnered with these guys? And what did you say, Dave? Absolutely. We're so grateful for you guys.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Thank you. We'll do you right.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. It is true. We were sprinting to get on that plane before we got locked down in San Diego for the night. All right. Some questions. Friends, we got a couple minutes. Come right over here to Russ.
I'll ask if nobody else wants to. Is this a cash flow and growth play or just growth?
Both. Yeah, this is definitely 100% both. There's going to be a lot of distributable profits in this business. This is not take your company and push off profits and keep reinvesting and push and keep reinvesting. There's definitely very, very strong cash cowness with this at every single level the entire way. So this is one that is going to produce distributions.
Nice.
Yeah.
So is there 7 in the Audacity Venture Fund now? Is that right?
Yes.
And that's it?
You'll just have to wait for the rest of the event. We're almost done, but not quite.
Oh, no, I meant 7 is the total in the fund.
I can neither confirm nor deny that
okay.
at this particular moment.
I didn't want you to think I was trying to end the day.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Russ. Jim.
So I'm involved in Pure Life, and could you explain how, as I'm an AR for Pure Life, how would that affect me?
Yeah. This is a really, really good question. Who else would like the answer to that one? Carson, you mind if I take a stab at that?
Do it.
All right. So what we're doing right now for the next 6 months is we're in the process of building systems. The frustration with building systems is that you don't get the benefit of them until you what? Until you put the switch on. So for the next 6 months, we've got probably 30 or 40 major systems that we're going to be putting in. My guess is for the next 6 months, you're not going to feel really significant differences. After 6 months, I think you're going to say, whoa, what happened? There's definitely a shift in pace and energy, and so definitely the tools and resources that are available. Because here's what we're envisioning. if I have someone that says, I want to buy a franchise because I believe in Pure Life, if we were to say, what does that process look like a year from now that we want to get to? What I want that to look like from day one is, first of all, a faster onboarding process, a simpler one that doesn't necessarily require SBA, one that can more easily require multiple investors coming together for co-ownership. Then I want to take them through very aggressive training modules. And the training is designed to help them get up to speed more quickly on how to actually run their franchise. And so you guys know that automation and systems are a really big part of what we do, which means that we can't just be waiting for the next live training, or maybe I'm going to fly in town and I'm going to observe what it looks like. I need things that are going to be far more dynamic, far more live, and far easier to access. So ease and access, I think, is going to be a change. Then you're going to see that there's actually a lot more direct training than what there is right now on anything, through CEO Bootcamp of reading financials, establishing culture, how you hire people. Because at the end, to implement a business plan, you basically are getting a business in a box, but there's so many opportunities for misstep when you get the wrong manager, when you hire the wrong people, or you don't know how to correct issues, or you're not part of a mastermind where you're working together as a team to solve for things and speed things up. So what I want to do is, the part of the reason of the safety net insurance program is I want to create a world where you and all Pure Life are literally on a regular basis getting together and talking about what is working and sharing the best industry secrets, as you should be, with each other, because you will win when you help each other grow. And so the goal is to take our most successful franchises and to educate everyone else, create incentive programs where they would want to do that, have conventions where we can actually start creating awareness, spotlighting, training, and educating people on awards and incentives programs that get them excited to want to compete and play at a higher level. I mean, honestly, the list it's extensive. And again, it's about having it already in the can, ready to go, ready to ignite. So the process just, really just gets you up to speed as quickly as possible. Yeah, because when you start a business and you've laid out money, and if you have a loan connected to it, what's the one thing that you have to start paying on? You start paying on the loan, you got interest, right? So how important is it to get to revenue? Yeah, so for me, every company gets to choose how they measure speed and success. You know how I'm going to measure success? From start to revenue. Can we shorten that time frame like Michael Dell did with the computer, saying we got to go from 28 days of shipping with AR that is killing us to 4-hour turnaround? And so it's, how do I start something and already be up and going as quickly as possible? So we're going to be evaluating all those systems, Gantt charting it out, and creating some huge acceleration there. Yeah. Great question, Jim. We're going to do one more question. Come right over here.
This is more of a general question. We joined the investor club during the last UFD, and this past 8 hours have proved that was the best decision in our life. So very, very grateful.
Give it up for them. Awesome, you guys.
Do want to say that. Being new to the investor club, is my thinking correct that whatever money that we've put into Audacity Fund, let's say $100 or whatever it is, does it automatically get redistributed as another company comes in equally? Or
yes. So
okay.
When you're in the Audacity Venture Fund, that means that even if this company comes on board tomorrow, past dollars still give you equal ownership in all the plays across. So timing of money does not affect that, and that is also true for the non-accredited fund, which is now up and going and available for those that are ready, so that when you invest there, everything, like when Casey reported on the last year what we did of Uplife Studios, you are still today getting all of that value captured from the very beginning.
Awesome. Thank you.
Now, once the fund closes, which is going to happen at the end of May, Audacity Venture Fund 1 is done. And then we'll move on to Audacity Venture
Number
Fund 2.
Keep it rolling. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. In May, the fund will be closing. Yeah, those are the rules that we have to play by. Now, by the way, today is presenting a lot of opportunities. Guess what tomorrow is? A lot of game planning and strategizing and how do we participate and what should we or should we not. Because one of the things that's important for you to know is that some of the things you're seeing here are really exciting, and that emotion should not play a role in what you should do. It's super important, which is why there's really a process to figuring out what your very specific game plan is, and we'll be doing a lot of that tomorrow. Carson, do you have any final wrap-up thoughts on Fast Track?
No, they put my contact information up at the end of this. Do you want them contacting me or Trent? Probably Trent, right?
I don't even know what that means. But you guys better hurry. You're smart. Thank you. Anyone else taking a snapshot is like, Carson Tejan's cell phone.
If you got questions and you want to get started now, contact me.
Well, and the last thing, guys, the reason why I'm presenting with this Carson is because Carson is neck deep in Fast Track right now. And he's doing a great job. Dan and the team are coming together really well. Once we get our CEO appointed and we start having that CEO help us talent search the next few key roles and we bring operations in and start developing these systems, we're going to start to see a really cool speed of acceleration. And I want to be clear, Fast Track is amazing the way it is. We just have a vision for it to put it on like super steroids. And it's going to be gooder. Guys, give it up for Carson. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.